Hello students. Now in this second part of this lecture we are going to see how TM wave is going to propagate inside a rectangular waveguide. In the first section of our lecture we have already discussed the similarities and the dissimilarities between waveguide and two-wire transmission line, and we have also seen why TEM wave is not able to propagate inside a rectangular waveguide. So for a start to this lecture, initially we should know what are TE and TM modes. When we say the modes, what are the meaning of those modes? So the electromagnetic wave inside a waveguide can have infinite number of patterns, which we say mode. Those are named as modes. We know that in an electromagnetic wave, the wave consists of magnetic and electric field which are always perpendicular to each other. The fields in waveguide which make up these modes pattern must obey certain physical laws. At the surface of a conductor, the electric field cannot have a component parallel to the surface. This indicates that the electric field must always be perpendicular to the surface at a conductor. Also, the magnetic field on the other hand is always parallel to the surface of the conductor and cannot have a component perpendicular to it at the surface. So in general we can say that there are two kinds of modes in a waveguide. In the first type, the electric field is always transverse to the direction of propagation, and this mode is called transverse electric or TE wave. In second type, the magnetic field is always transverse to the direction of propagation and is termed as transverse magnetic or TM wave. So in a TE mode, no electric line is in direction of propagation, and in case of TM there is no magnetic line in direction of propagation. So if we assume that our Z is the direction of propagation, then for TM HZ will be 0 and for TE EZ will be 0. Now we use subscript for designating a particular mode for TE or TM. Generally TE MN small mn or TM small mn as a subscript, where small m indicates the number of half wave variation of electric field or the magnetic field in TM across the wider dimension, that is A, of a waveguide, and small n indicates the number across the narrow dimension B. Also, the mode having the highest cutoff wavelength is known as the dominant mode of the waveguide, and all other modes are called higher modes. For example, that we will see further also, TE10 is the dominant mode for TE wave. It is the mode which is used for practically all electromagnetic transmission in a rectangular waveguide. Dominant mode is almost always a low loss, distortion-less transmission, and higher modes result in a significant loss of power and also undesirable harmonic distortion. So now let us start our discussion for TM wave. So as we know, for transverse magnetic wave, the magnetic component in direction of propagation will be 0. Here that component is Hz, so here Hz will be 0, whereas the electrical component in that direction will be a non-zero quantity. So we have written for TM wave Hz is 0 but Ez is having some non-zero value, and we have already discussed in our previous lecture that the equation for TM wave is this: curly square Ez over curly x square plus curly of square Ez over curly y square plus h square Ez equals to 0. This equation we have derived in our previous lecture. Just for the reference, I can show you that again. So these were the two basic equations for TE and TM wave, and by expanding any of these two equations in a rectangular coordinate system, we are going to suppose in this case we have expanded the second equation. So this equation take the form of equation number 1, just like this, and from this we have derived these two equation 4 and 5 for TM and for TE wave. So this is the equation, because we are dealing with the case of TM wave, so this equation we have taken as a reference equation. So this is equation number 1 here: curly square Ez over curly x square plus curly square Ez over curly y square plus h square into Ez equals to 0. Now this is a partial differentiation equation which can be solved to get the Ex component, Ey component, Hx component and Hy component by separation of variable method. Now here let us assume a solution of this equation, and the possible solution for this equation we are assuming the solution is Ez equals to x, capital X into capital Y. Now let us consider this as equation number 2. Now here this capital X is a pure function of x only, and this capital Y is a pure function of y only. Now since x and y are independent variable, here in this case these two are independent variable, so we can say curly square Ez over curly x square, we take the first part of this equation, only this part, and try to replace this Ez by possible solution, that is by equation number 2. So taking this portion of the equation, curly square Ez over curly x square will be equals to, now we are going to replace this Ez by this xy, so this equation becomes curly square into xy over curly x square. Now because in this equation this x is pure function of x and y is pure function of y, so here when we are dealing with differentiation with respect to x, we can take y as a constant value, so because x and y are independent, so this equation, this part of the equation becomes y into curly square x over curly x square. And similarly this second part, this part curly square Ez over curly y square, now in this part also we are going to replace Ez by the possible solution, that is by equation number 2. So by replacing this by equation 2, the second part of the equation also becomes like this: curly square into xy over curly y square. Again here, because x and y are independent variable, so we can write this equation like this: x into curly square y over curly y square. Now we are going to use these two equations in equation number 1, this equation and this equation in this particular equation. So by putting this these two in equation number 1, we get an equation, that is y into d square x over dx square plus x into d square y over dy square plus h square into xy. Here this ez is also replaced by its possible solution, that is equation number 2. So our equation, this equation number 1, take a form like this. Now dividing throughout this equation by xy, we get 1 by x into d square x over dx square plus 1 by y into d square y over dy square plus h square equals to 0. Let us assume this is equation number 4. Now this first part of this equation, that is 1 by x d square x over dx square, is a pure function of x only, and also the second part of this equation, equation number 4, is a pure function of y only. So the sum of these is a constant, hence each term must be equal to a constant separately. Since x and y are independent variable, we use separation of variable methods to solve the differential equation. So from this, here we are assuming that this part 1 over x into d square x over dx square is equals to minus of b square, and 1 over y into d square y over dy square equals to minus of a square. And let us term these equation as equation number 5 and equation number 6. Here this minus a square and this minus b square are constants. Now putting these two values, equation 5 and 6, in our equation number 4 in this equation, so in place of this we are going to write minus of b square, and in place of this we are going to write minus of a square. So in this way this equation 4 becomes like this: minus of b square minus of a square plus h square equals to 0, and from here we get h square equals to a square plus b square. Let us assume this is equation number 7. Now equation 5 and 6 are ordinary second order differential equation. If we see these two, these are the second order differential equation, the solution of which is given by solution of this equation and this equation, because these are second order ordinary differential equation. So the solution of these two can be given by these two equation 8 and 9, where x, capital X, is equals to c1 cos of bx plus c2 sin of bx, and capital Y equals to c3 cos of ay plus c4 sin of ay. And let us say these are equation number 8 and 9. Now in these two equation 8 and 9, c1, c2, c3, c4 are the constant which are evaluated by applying the boundary condition. So from this x and y, as we know from equation number 2, this was our solution, complete solution, Ez equals to xy. Now if we put the equation 8 and 9, these two equation, in equation number 2, in place of this x and y, our this equation 2 becomes this equation. This was equation 2. Putting these two equation in this particular equation, then this equation becomes Ez equals to bracket start c1 cos of bx plus c2 sin of bx, and another bracket start c3 cos of ay plus c4 sin of ay. So this second equation, becomes this equation, and let us this equation be equation 10. Now let us see what are the boundary conditions and try to apply those boundary conditions for this particular case. Now we can see from this figure, since the entire surface of a rectangular waveguide acts as a short circuit or a ground for electric field Ez equals to 0 all along the boundary walls of the waveguide. Since there are 4 walls, as one can see, the bottom wall, the left hand wall, the side wall, and the top wall. There are 4 walls. There are 4 different boundary conditions. Now take the first boundary condition, that is first boundary condition is for the bottom wall. The bottom wall is this, starting from this 0 A up to this point, and coming back to this point. So this will be our bottom wall. So first boundary condition will be for this bottom wall, and the condition is that at this wall the Ez will be 0. The electrical component will be 0 at this bottom wall all along the bottom wall. So the condition is for this bottom wall that Ez is 0 at y equals to 0. For this bottom wall, y is 0 because this bottom wall is lying on this horizontal axis, and at this horizontal axis everywhere the value of y is 0, and for all the values of x ranging from 0 to a, and the value of x varies from this point to this point. So we can say for the bottom wall the electrical component will be 0 at y equals to 0, and for all the values of x ranging from 0 to a, from this point to this point for this bottom wall. So this will be the first boundary condition. Now take the second boundary condition, that is for this wall 0 B, this point, and coming back to 0. So this will be our second wall, left side wall, and for this we are having the second boundary condition. Here also, for this wall also, Ez is again 0 at x equal to 0. Now because this wall is lying on vertical axis, so at each and every point of this wall the value of x will be 0, and the y varies from 0 to b for this wall, for the side wall. So the second boundary condition says that the electrical component, that is Ez component, will be 0 for the left wall at x equals to 0, and for all the values of y is varying from 0 to b. So here also the Ez will be 0. Now take the third boundary condition, that is this top wall, that is starting from this point B to this point, to this point, to this point, and coming back to P. So this is the top wall of our waveguide, and here also the electrical component, that is Ez will be 0, and here the value of y is equals to b, and the x varies from 0 to a. So the third boundary condition will become Ez is 0 at y equals to b, and for all the values of x varying from 0 to a. This is for the top wall. Similarly, we can have the fourth boundary condition for the right wall. This is the right wall, starting from this a to this point, to this point, to this point, and coming back to a. So this is our fourth wall, that is the right wall. So here also our Ez component will be 0. We can see from here Ez will be 0 at x equals to a, because here the value for this wall, the value of x is a. So for x equals to a, and for all the values of y varying from 0 to b, and here y varies from, here y is 0 and here y equals to b. So for this wall y varies from 0 to b and the value of x is a. So the Ez component for this right side wall will also be 0 for all the values of y ranging from 0 to b and at x equals to a. So these are 4 boundary condition corresponding to 4 different walls. Now let us see how our equation behaves, this equation behaves when we apply our these 4 boundary condition. Now we see the final equation will be look like this, 11, 12, and the final solution will be like this. Now let us see how we have reached up to these equation. Now here we are going to apply these 4 boundary condition one by one in equation number 10 and see what will be the effect of these boundary condition. Now let us start from our first boundary condition, and the first boundary condition is for the bottom wall, which says the Ez component is 0 all along the bottom wall at y equals to 0 and for all the values of x varying from 0 to a. Now when we apply this boundary condition, first boundary condition, into this equation, then we can have this Ez equals to 0 for the bottom wall, and this equation c1 cos of bx plus c2 sin of bx into c3 cos of ay plus c4 sin of ay. In this we apply this boundary condition at y equals to 0 and for all the values of x varying from 0 to a. Now if we see in equation number 10, here in the first part of the equation there is no y, so and the second part we see the y is 0 and x is not having a constant value, but the value of x that is varying from 0 to a. Now we apply this condition. So if we put y equals to 0 here, then this will become c3 cos of a0, and because cos 0 is 1, so here we are having only c3 left. Similarly, if we put y equals to 0 in this case, so sin 0 will be equals to 0, so this term, this whole term c4 into this sin of 0, this whole terms becomes 0, and our equation becomes, this equation 10 becomes like this after applying the first boundary condition. So here Ez is 0 and here c1 cos of bx plus c2 sin of bx, and here only c3 because of these two condition, cos 0 equals to 1 and sin 0 equals to 0. Now this is after applying the first boundary condition. Now this is true for all the values of x ranging from 0 to a. So if we see this equation, this whole equation is 0, we can see here. Now if we put this term equal to 0, then this will not be 0, and this term will be 0 at a particular value of x, and at a particular value of x here. But in our present case, x is of varying nature. It is varying between 0 to a. So in this particular case, this bracketed part of this equation, this cannot be equal to 0. So the result is, in this equation, this C3 constant is 0. So by applying first boundary condition, we concluded that the constant C3 in equation 10 is 0, and using this in equation 10, we get here, if we put C3 equals to 0, then this equation 10, after applying first boundary condition, will takes the form like this. Ez will be C1 cos of bx plus C2 sin of bx into C4 sin of a into y. This we call as equation 10a. Now we are going to apply the second boundary condition. Now we know the second boundary condition was for this wall, side wall, or the left wall. Now for this left side wall, our condition was, we can see from here, the condition was that our Ez electrical component in z direction will be 0 at x equal to 0, and for all the values of y ranging from 0 to b. Now we are applying this boundary condition into equation 10a, this equation. So by applying this, we can say Ez will be 0, this will be 0, and what we are saying, as per the second boundary condition, we are having x at x equal to 0. So in this equation 10a, we see here, if we apply x equal to 0 here and also x equal to 0 here, then this part of the equation becomes cos of here, this will become cos of 0, and cos 0 is equals to 1. So here we will see only C1 will left. Similarly, in this part, if we apply x equal to 0, then sin 0 is 0. So this whole term C2 sin of bx, this becomes 0. And also y is varying from 0 to b. So this term will not be 0. Now we apply this condition, then we get this equation, because here we are only having C1 left, this will be 0, and the remaining part is C4 sin of ay. So this equation will be 0 for the side wall, left side wall. Ez is 0, and the equation becomes C1, this C1, and C4 sin of ay, C4 sin of ay for all the values of y varying from 0 to b. Now see this equation. Now in this, since ay is not equal to 0, because the value of y is varying, it may be 0 at y equals to 0, but for other values this term will not be 0, and here y is varying from 0 to b. So this sin of ay will not be 0, and C4 is also not 0, because if C4 is 0 in this equation, then this whole equation becomes 0. So we get that C1 here is 0. Now using equation 10a, the solution further reduces to here. We can, this was 10a, here we have assumed, we have calculated that this C1 is 0. So this 10a equation, after applying the second boundary condition, this reduced to this form: Cz equals to C2 C4 sine of Bx into sine of Ay. Let us say this is equation 10b. Now we are going to apply the third boundary condition in our this particular equation 10 of b. Now what is our third boundary condition? The third boundary condition, as we have discussed previously, that states that Ex is 0, Ez is 0 at y equals to b. We can see here, this was our third boundary condition. Ez is 0 at y equals to b, and for all the values of x varying from 0 to a. This was for the top wall. Now we are going to apply this boundary condition in our equation 10b. So the equation becomes like this: Ez will be 0 for C2 C4 sine Bx and sine of Ay. Here we are putting y equals to b, because in this particular case, third boundary condition, we see here this was our top wall for which we are having the third boundary condition, and for this the y is everywhere, the y is b. So we put y equals to b in this whole equation, and this equation will be 0 for all values of x varying from 0 to a. Now since x is varying in between, so it may not have 0 values for all the values of x. It may be 0 at x equals to 0. So we can say if this whole equation is 0 at all the values of x varying from 0 to a, so this sine of bx is not equal to 0. Similarly, C4 is also not 0, C2, this is also not 0, because if these are 0, we can say there would be no possible solution. So from here we conclude that this remaining part, sine of AB, this might be 0 to make this whole equation 0. Now if we put sine of AB equals to 0, then this AB will be equal to multiple of pi, and that we can say n, where this n, small n, is a constant whose value may be 0, 1, 2, 3, like this. So if we put n equals to 0, then we get a equals to, or we put n equals to 1 or 2 or 3. If we see here, then if we say AB is equals to n pi, then a will be equals to n pi by b. Now let us say this is equation number 2. Now we are having a one value of a. Now in the same equation 10b, we are going to apply the fourth boundary condition, which states that Ez will be 0 at x equals to a, and for all the values of y varying from 0 to b. Now this was our 10b equation. Here when we apply the fourth boundary condition, then this Ez will be 0, and this is equals to C2 C4 sine of BA and sine of AY. Now here we are applying x equals to a, because if we see here in this diagram, this our fourth boundary condition was for this right wall, and at this right wall, at each and every point on this right wall, the value of x is always a. So in this equation we are going to put our x equals to a. So if we put x equals to a here, then we see this sine of ay is again not equal to 0. Why this is not equal to 0? Because y is having a variable value. It may vary from 0 to b. It might be possible if we take y equals to 0, then this term becomes 0. But if we take any value other than 0, then this term will not be 0. And in our present case, y is not a fixed value, it is varying value between 0 to b. So this term sine of ay is not equal to 0. Similarly, c4 is not equal to 0, c2 is not equal to 0. So from here we conclude that if these three values are not 0, then definitely the sine of BA is 0. Now if we say sine of BA equals to 0, it means this B into A is equals to m into pi, where m is a constant value whose value may be 0, 1, 2, 3. So from here, from this part, we get capital B equals to m pi by A. Let us consider this as equation number 12. Now we are going to put our each and every solution into our complete solution, which was given by equation 10b, like this. Here we are having our equation 10b. This was 10b. So we are going to put the value of our this capital A and the value of this capital B, which we have got from equation 11 and 12. Then we can finally get the final solution of the equation, this equation. So by putting the value of capital A and capital B, we get the complete solution like this. Cz equals to C2 C4 into sine of, here the value of m pi by A, the B value of B, and this was value of A. Now here we see there are two other components, e raised to power minus of gamma z, and another is e raised to power j of omega t. Now here this e raised to power minus gamma z, this component is the propagation along the z direction, because wave is propagating along z direction. That is why we are saying this e minus e raised to power minus of gamma z, and this e raised to power j omega t, this shows the sinusoidal variation with respect to t. And if we combine C2 and C4, because C2 is a constant, C4 is another constant, so if we consider C2 into C4 as C, then we can replace this C2 C4 by another constant, that is C. So by putting that equal to C, our solution becomes like this: Ez equals to C sine m pi by A into x sine n pi by B into y e raised to power j omega t minus of gamma z. So this is the final solution for Ez in case of Tm. Now as we know, initially we have derived these four equations, and now in our present case we are dealing with the Tm mode, and in Tm mode the Hz component will be 0. So if we reduce this equation for Tm, we will say this part will be 0 for Tm wave, again this part will be 0 for Tm wave, and this part will be 0 for Tm wave, and this part will be also 0 for Tm wave. Here it is Hz, not Hx. So we will have the equation in term of Ex in term of Ez only, Ey in term of Ez only, Hx in term of Ez only, and Hy in term of Ez only, and we know the value of Ez. So now we are going to put the calculated value of your final solution of Ez, which we have calculated for Tm wave, in these four equations. We are going to replace this Ez, this will become 0. This Ez, this will be 0 for Tm, this will be 0 for Tm. We are going to replace this Ez by our solution, and this term will again be 0 for Tm, and we are going to replace this Ez. So finally, when we put the value of Ez, we get Ex like this, the final solution, Ey represented by 15 equation, Hx by 16, and Hy 17. So these four are the final equation which we receive while dealing with the Tm mode. Now we will see the various modes that may be possible inside a waveguide. Now those modes will be depending upon the value of m and n, and depending upon that we are having various modes. Now, as I have told you, in general we are going to represent the mode as here Tm for the transverse magnetic, and here small m and n. So we can have the different values of m and n, and we can see whether those modes exist or not. So we will start from very basic mode, that is Tm00, where small m is 0 and small n is also 0. Now if we put this value here, we are having small m, small n, n, m. In all equation we are having small m and small n. Now if we put in these four equation 14, 15, 16, 17, m equals to 0 and n equals to 0, we see all these equations becomes 0, and so we can say this Tm00 mode cannot exist inside a rectangular waveguide. Now let us check for the higher mode, Tm01, where m is 0 and n is 1. Again we will see that each of these four equation, again the resultant is 0 for this particular case. Now let us take the another case for Tm10, where small m is 1 and n equals to 0. So again we will see when we put m equals to 1 and n equals to 0, in these four equations we will see these four component Ex, Ey, Hx, Hy all becomes again 0. So this mode also doesn't exist inside a rectangular waveguide. Now let us take the fourth combination, that is when we assume small m is 1 and n is also 1. Now we see we have all the component Ex, Ey, Hx, Hy present. So we can say Tm11 mode exists, and also for all higher values of m and n the component exists, that is all higher mode do exist. Means if we put m equals to 1, n equals to 2, or m equals to 2, n equals to 2, and all other higher values of m or n, in that case we see that these four components will exist for higher modes also. So the minimum possible mode which is possible in case of transverse magnetic mode is Tm11 mode. Now let us define some terms related to the transverse magnetic mode in case of a rectangular waveguide. Now one is cutoff frequency of a waveguide. As we have already said, the waveguide act as a high pass filter. So we can say frequency at which gamma just become 0 is defined as the cutoff frequency or the threshold frequency Fc. So in our equation, we can say if we put f equals to fc, gamma equals to 0, at that point we will say our fc is the cutoff frequency. This equation I have discussed earlier. So from there we can see our cutoff frequency will be equals to c by 2 bracket start m by a square plus n by b square whole under the root. So this will be our cutoff frequency, and the cutoff wavelength can be defined as the ratio of c by fc. So in this equation we are going to replace this fc by equation 18, and finally we get the cutoff wavelength equals to twice of ab divided by under the root m square b square plus n square a square. Now from this equation 19 we can say if our operating wavelength is greater than our cutoff wavelength, then the wave is attenuated, and if our operating wavelength is less than the cutoff wavelength, that wavelength is allowed to propagate inside a waveguide. Similarly, we can say for this fc cutoff frequency, because these waveguides are acting as a high pass filter, so any frequency higher than this cutoff frequency, that will be only allowed to propagate, and the frequencies less than this fc will not be allowed to propagate and they will be attenuated. So this was a little bit about cutoff wavelength and the cutoff frequency. Now let us discuss another term, that a guided wavelength lambda g, group velocity vg, and the phase velocity vp. Now this guided wavelength is the distance traveled by a wave in order to undergo a phase shift of 2 pi radian. Now suppose this is our waveguide, air filled waveguide, and this distance starting from this to this, now here from this point to this point it completes its one cycle, and the total phase shift is 2 pi radian. So this distance traveled by the wave within a waveguide is termed as guided wavelength lambda g, and this lambda g can be written as 2 pi by beta, or if we from this equation number 21 we can see the relation between the guided wavelength lambda g, the free space wavelength lambda naught, and the cutoff wavelength lambda c. So this equation represents the relation between the three different wavelengths, and from this equation we can finally derive the guided wavelength equals to lambda naught upon under the root 1 minus lambda naught by lambda c square. Now this equation is very important as far as the propagation is concerned. Now in this equation is true for any mode in waveguide of any cross section, provided this lambda c correspond to the mode and the cross section of the waveguide. Now from this relation it is clear that if lambda naught is very less as compared to lambda c, then the denominator is approximately equals to 1, and in this case lambda g will be equals to lambda naught. Now at a condition when lambda naught is equal to lambda c, in that case this lambda g increases and reaches infinity. When lambda naught becomes, when these two becomes equal, then this becomes infinity, and when lambda naught is greater than lambda c, now in this case it is evident that lambda g is, this is imaginary, which means nothing but no propagation in a waveguide. So this is how this equation is very much important as far as wave propagation inside a waveguide is concerned. Now let us consider another important definition, that is the phase velocity. Now this phase velocity is the rate at which the wave changes its phase in term of guided wavelength. Mathematically, if we say Vp is the phase velocity, then this lambda g is the distance traveled by a waveguide to undergo a 2 pi phase shift, and this is the time taken. So this time can be written in term of frequency. As we know, time is equals to 1 upon f. So here we are going to replace time in term of frequency. So this Vp becomes lambda g into f, and if we multiply and divide this by 2 pi, this 2 pi divided and this by 2 pi multiplied, then this equation becomes like this: 2 pi f into lambda g over 2 pi. Now we know this 2 pi f is our omega, and 2 pi by lambda g, this is beta. So we can say this phase velocity is equals to omega over beta. So we can say this phase velocity is the rate at which the wave changes its phase in term of the guided wavelength. Another definition is our group velocity. Now here we can see this is the rate at which the wave propagates through waveguide. Vg is rate of change of omega with respect to beta. Now if there is a modulation in the carrier, the modulation envelope actually travels at a velocity slower than that of the carrier alone, and of course slower than the speed of light. The velocity of modulation envelope is called the group velocity, which is represented here. Now there are some formulas also which will be helpful in calculating the various parameters when we are dealing with the numericals. This is the formula for phase velocity. This is again the formula for phase velocity in term of its wavelength. This is the group velocity, which can be represented by this equation number 27, and also there is a relation that product of group velocity and phase velocity will be equals to c square. And again this formula we have already studied, the relation between guided wavelength, the free space wavelength, and the cutoff wavelength. So this is all about the transverse magnetic mode in a rectangular waveguide. In the next section of our lecture, we are going to see how transverse electric mode is going to propagate inside a rectangular waveguide. This is all for this section. Thanks for listening and have a nice day. In the next lecture, we are going to see the transverse electric mode.